Have you ever stood in front of the people you love most, only to hear them say you're not good enough, not worthy, and that you should just disappear from their lives? That's exactly what happened to me at my dad's 65th birthday party, right at the Pinnacle, the fanciest restaurant in Seattle. Picture this: my sister, Lauren, in a sparkling designer dress, pointing right in my face in front of dozens of guests and yelling, "Emma, you don't belong here. Please, just go home and stop embarrassing Dad." My brother, Michael, even smirked and said, "You work at a bookstore, right? This is a party for successful people, little sis." The whole room went silent. I felt like I was dissolving, like every stare was ripping my self-worth to shreds. But what they didn't know was a secret that had my entire family begging for forgiveness just minutes later. In the next 40 minutes, you'll witness the moment my family, people who always saw me as a failure, came crashing down when the truth exploded. I'm Emma Carter, and I've been hiding something nobody in my family knew. I'm not a bookstore clerk. I'm the CEO of a $100 million ed tech company, and I own the very skyscraper they're standing in, showing off. But why did I keep it a secret? Because I wanted to know if my family could love me for who I am, not just when I'm draped in the glow of wealth. The answer will shock you, and this journey will change how you think about your own worth. Drop a comment right now. Where are you watching this from? And if you've ever been misjudged just because you didn't flaunt your success, hit that like button to support this story. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell, because I'm about to spill all the drama, from public humiliation to the moment my family had to face the truth. Ready? Let's step into the Pinnacle and see what went down. To understand why that moment at the Pinnacle cut so deep, I need to take you back to the Carter family, the people who shaped me, but also made me feel like an outsider in my own home. We lived in Seattle, a city where glittering glass skyscrapers blend with the misty haze of Puget Sound. From the outside, we looked like a picture-perfect family, wealthy, successful, and always flashing a well-rehearsed smile. But beneath that polished surface was a far messier story. My dad, James Carter, was the heart of our family. He's the kind of guy who makes you believe anyone can rise from nothing. Born to a truck driver and a grocery store clerk, he grew up in cramped apartments where winters were freezing and dinner was sometimes just bread with peanut butter. But James didn't let his circumstances define him. He built a logistics company from scratch, working 16-hour days, driving trucks cross-country, and turning it into a multi-million-dollar transportation empire. When I was a kid, Dad was my superhero. He'd take me fishing on Saturday mornings, just the two of us, sitting by the lake swapping stories about the old days. "Emma," he'd say, "every dollar has its worth, but character's the one thing money can't buy." I believed that, until everything changed. My mom, Margaret Carter, was a different story. She came from a working-class background too, but you'd never guess it from the way she carried herself. As Dad's company took off, Mom reinvented herself as a high-society lady, like she was born to wear diamonds and host tea parties with Seattle's elite. Every step, every smile was calculated to cement our family's place among the city's upper crust. She joined exclusive clubs, donated to charity galas, not because she cared, but because it was her ticket to high society. Mom always said, "Image is everything, Emma. Never let anyone think we're less than perfect." I still remember her fixing my hair before school, like a single stray strand could ruin the family's reputation. Then there's my sister, Lauren, the shining star of the Carter family. Lauren was perfection in my parents' eyes. She graduated top of her class from a prestigious Seattle law school and worked at a top-tier firm, representing clients you'd only read about in Forbes. Lauren never missed a chance to flaunt her latest Birkin bag or name-drop a dinner with some CEO. She had a knack for slipping her achievements into every conversation, even when no one asked. "Oh, I just won a huge case yesterday," she'd say, tossing her glossy hair. "Bet Emma wouldn't get this stuff, right?" I'd just smile, but inside, those words stung like needles. My brother, Michael, wasn't much different. A real estate investor, Michael made money faster than you can scroll through Instagram. He owned a yacht, a mansion in Bellevue, and a car collection he swapped out quicker than his wardrobe. Michael measured everything by its price tag. "Emma, ever think about making real money?" he asked once, leaning against his brand new Porsche. "I mean, working at a bookstore's cute, but does it even pay the bills?" I'd shrug, but my heart sank. To Michael, your worth came down to what luxury you could show off. And then there's me, Emma Carter, the youngest, the one who never fit in. While my family lived to impress, I craved simpler things. I loved cozy nights curled up with a book, writing, or dreaming about ways to make the world better. As a kid, I'd ask Dad, "Why do people care so much about money? Isn't happiness more important?" He'd laugh and ruffle my hair, but as our family climbed higher up the social ladder, those questions started to annoy Mom. "Emma, why can't you be more like Lauren?" she'd sigh. "Look at your sister, valedictorian, rubbing elbows with important people. What are you going to do with all those books?" My differences created a rift early on. While Lauren and Michael were praised for high grades or big deals, my achievements, like winning a statewide writing contest or teaching myself to code, were brushed off. "That's cute, Emma," Mom would say, before gushing about Lauren's keynote at some conference. Dad, once my biggest ally, grew distant too. As his company expanded, he got swept up in cocktail parties and power connections. Our fishing trips vanished, replaced by disappointed looks when I didn't follow the path the family expected. But what my family didn't know, and what I deliberately hid, was that I wasn't the failure they thought I was. I'd chosen my own path, one I believed in with all my heart. And that path led me to a secret bigger than anything they could imagine. But before I spill that secret, drop a comment below. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong in your own family? Share your story, because I know I'm not alone. And if you're dying to know what went down at the pinnacle, keep watching. This story's just getting started. Now, I need to tell you the secret my family, those who've always seen me as a failure, had no clue about. This secret isn't just a fact, it's an entire world I built from passion and belief. I don't work at a bookstore like they think. I'm Emma Carter, CEO and founder of EdTech Solutions, a $100 million education technology company that's changing how kids around the world learn. But why did I hide this from my own family? To answer that, I need to take you back a few years, to when I chose to ditch the path everyone expected and chase what I truly believed in. Picture this, I'm 26, fresh out of a prestigious Seattle university with a finance degree. My mom, Margaret, had my whole life mapped out: a cushy bank job, a luxury condo, maybe a designer handbag to flaunt at her friends' brunches. I played along, landing a role at a major investment bank, where I sat in sterile glass offices, crunching numbers and enduring endless meetings. But every day, I felt like a piece of my soul was draining away. The figures on my screen meant nothing to me. The boss's praise for my stellar performance just left me hollow. I'd spend nights alone in my tiny apartment, wondering, is this the life I want? Just to make my family happy. Finally, after 2 years, I couldn't take it anymore. I quit. The day I told my family, you could practically hear my mom's heart shatter over the phone. "Emma, what are you doing with your life?" she screamed. "You had a bright future, and now you're throwing it away. What are we supposed to tell our friends?" My dad, James, once my superhero, just shook his head over FaceTime, his eyes heavy with disappointment. "I worked my whole life to give you opportunities, Emma," he said, "and this is how you repay me." My sister, Lauren, sent a curt text, "This is embarrassing." And my brother, Michael? He just smirked at Christmas dinner, saying, "So, bookstore girl, need me to spot you some cash for gifts?" They thought I'd taken a job managing a small bookstore in downtown Seattle, a gig my mom called a social disaster. But that was just a cover, a story I made up to hide the truth. In reality, I'd poured every penny of my savings, every ounce of sweat, and my entire heart into building EdTech solutions. This company wasn't just a business, it was my dream. We developed AI-driven software that personalizes learning, helping kids in underfunded schools, places without enough textbooks, access quality education. I'll never forget my first visit to an elementary school in a rough part of Tacoma. The kids, with their bright, eager eyes, used our software to learn reading and math. A little girl, barely 8, hugged me and said, "Miss, now I can learn like my friends at the big school." That moment was worth more than any $1 million deal Lauren or Michael ever bragged about. 5 years later, EdTech Solutions had expanded to 20 countries, funded scholarships for thousands of students, and donated millions to build schools in remote areas. The company was valued at $100 million, and I, the girl they called a failure, was the one behind it all. But I never bragged. I lived in a modest apartment, drove an old Toyota, and wore simple sweaters. Why? Because I wanted to know if my family could love me, respect me, for who I really am, not just for money or status. It was a test, and I'd been waiting years for the answer. On the day of my dad's 65th birthday party at the Pinnacle, I stood in front of my mirror, my heart pounding. The Pinnacle wasn't just a restaurant, it was a symbol of Seattle's elite, perched atop a glass skyscraper with a view that swallowed the city whole. I'd been there dozens of times, not as a guest, but as the organizer of charity galas for EdTech Solutions. The staff knew me, from the security guard to the head chef. But my family? They had no idea. They thought I was there to blend into their glitz, and that made me both nervous and determined. I held my navy sweater and a pair of sleek jeans, wondering if I should change. Part of me wanted to slip into a designer dress, stride into the Pinnacle like a queen, and silence my whole family. I could have done it, I had the money to outshine anything Lauren flaunted. But that would have ruined everything I'd built. I wanted them to see the real Emma, not a version draped in cash. I put on small silver earrings, a gift from my grandma, and stared at my reflection. "Am I ready for this?" I whispered. My phone buzzed. It was Sophie, my best friend from college, the only person outside my company who knew the truth about me. "Emma, you okay?" she asked, her voice full of concern. "Tonight's a big deal. Are you gonna tell them?" I sighed, sinking onto my couch. "I don't know, Sophie. I want them to see me without knowing about EdTech Solutions. But what if they tear me down again? What if they kick me out of the party like they did at Christmas?" Sophie paused, then said, "You built a company that's changing the world, Emma. Whatever they do, you don't need them to feel enough. But I think it's time you lived your truth." Sophie's words echoed in my head as I tied my hair into a neat bun. She was right, I couldn't keep hiding behind the bookstore facade. But fear still crept in. Fear that if I told the truth and they still rejected me, it would crush the last shred of hope I had for a real family. I picked up my gift for Dad, an old leather journal he'd used when he started his company, something I'd spent months tracking down. It wasn't flashy like Lauren's or Michael's gifts, but it meant something to me. Maybe tonight will be different, I told myself, though deep down, I wasn't sure I believed it. Before we go on, I want to hear from you. Have you ever hidden a part of yourself because you were afraid of being judged? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one, and I know we can learn from each other. If you're dying to know what happened when I walked into the pinnacle, keep watching, because the real drama is just getting started. As I stood in front of the mirror in my small apartment, my heart was pounding like it might burst out of my chest. Today was my dad's 65th birthday, James Carter's big day, and I was about to walk into the Pinnacle, Seattle's most luxurious restaurant, where my family would gather to flaunt their success. But for me, this wasn't just a party. It was the ultimate test, a chance to see if my family could see the real Emma, not the CEO of EdTech Solutions, not the owner of the Pinnacle skyscraper, but just the youngest daughter who loves books, cherishes honesty, and always wants to do the right thing. I knew it was almost impossible, but a part of me still hoped. And hope, sometimes, is the most dangerous thing of all. I clutched my navy sweater and sleek jeans, the outfit I'd chosen after an hour of internal debate. Part of me wanted to change, to slip into a designer dress, throw on some sparkling jewelry, and strut into the Pinnacle the way my sister, Lauren, always does. I could have done it. I had the money to buy anything in her closet, but that wouldn't be me. I wanted them to see who I really am, not a version dolled up to please my mom, Margaret, or to stop my brother, Michael, from smirking. I put on my small silver earrings, a gift from my grandma, who always said, "Simplicity is strength," and stared at my reflection. "I've got this," I whispered, but my voice trembled, like I was trying to convince myself. The gift I brought for Dad was an old leather journal, the kind he used when he started his logistics company. I'd spent months tracking it down, scouring Seattle's antique shops and even bidding online to get it. It wasn't flashy like the Rolex Michael might give or the European vacation Lauren probably planned, but it meant something. I remembered Dad's stories about those early days, when he'd jot down every plan in a journal like this, dreaming of a better future for our family. I hoped the gift would remind him of who he used to be, the dad who taught me character matters more than money. As I drove my beat-up Toyota to downtown Seattle, the Pinnacle's lights glowed like a beacon in the night sky. The restaurant sat atop a sleek glass skyscraper, with a view that stretched from the Space Needle to Puget Sound. I'd been there dozens of times, not as a guest, but as the organizer of charity galas for EdTech Solutions. I'd raised millions of dollars in the very room my family was about to gather in, but they had no idea. To them, I was just Emma, the failure of a sister, the bookstore clerk who wore cheap clothes. Thinking of my mom's judgmental stare, I gripped the steering wheel, trying to push down the fear rising inside me. When I stepped out of my car and handed my keys to the valet, a wave of nerves hit me. I looked up at the Pinnacle's tower, and another secret made my heart race. I didn't just frequent this place. I owned the whole skyscraper, an investment EdTech Solutions made last year to secure space for community projects. But I'd asked the staff to keep it quiet, because I didn't want my family to know. Not today. Not until I saw their true reactions. As the elevator whisked me to the top floor, I tried to breathe steadily. The doors opened, and the Pinnacle sparkled like a palace of light. Glass walls reflected crystal chandeliers, marble floors gleamed, and soft jazz filled the air. I stepped into the lobby, and immediately, Sophia, the restaurant manager, spotted me. "Miss Carter," she exclaimed, then lowered her voice when I signaled her. "We didn't know you were here with family tonight. Your VIP table's ready, as always." I smiled, whispering, "Sophia, please, don't say anything. They don't know about me." She raised an eyebrow but nodded, her eyes glinting with curiosity. I stood at the bar, sipping a sparkling water, trying to stay calm. Through the glass, I saw Seattle's lights stretching out like a twinkling carpet. But that peace shattered when my family arrived. First came my mom, Margaret, dazzling in a sequined gown, a pricey pearl necklace at her throat, striding like she owned the world. My dad, James, followed, in a tailored suit, still commanding but weary, like years of chasing status had taken something from him. Then Lauren, my sister, with her Birkin bag swinging from her arm, her hair glossy like she'd just left a salon. Last was Michael, my brother, bragging to the valet about his new Maserati, making sure everyone could hear. I took a deep breath and walked toward them, Dad's gift clutched in my hand. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said, hugging him and handing him the leather journal. He smiled, but his hug was stiff, like his mind was elsewhere. "Thanks, Emma," he said, then turned to greet a group of businessmen, his powerful friends, the ones Mom always wanted to impress. Mom scanned me from head to toe, her lips pursed. "Emma, this is what you're wearing?" she hissed, her voice dripping with criticism. "You look like the waitstaff. This is the Pinnacle, not your bookstore." I tried to keep my tone light. "I think I'm fine, Mom. Today's about Dad, right?" But before she could respond, Lauren cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. "Seriously, Emma? You work at a bookstore and show up here? That outfit's from a thrift store, isn't it?" She smirked, loud enough for a few nearby guests to turn and look. Michael clapped my shoulder, his grin fake. "Don't worry, sis, I'll cover your meal. A bookstore gig probably can't afford a glass of water here." My face burned, my heart squeezed tight. But the worst was still coming. As we moved toward the private dining room, Lauren suddenly pulled me aside, her manicured nails digging into my arm. "Emma," she said, her voice low but loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "don't you feel out of place? This is the Pinnacle, not somewhere for people like you. Please, don't embarrass Dad in front of the VIPs." Michael chimed in, his tone smug. "For real, Emma. A plate here costs more than your monthly paycheck. Want me to call you an Uber?" Mom, standing nearby, fixed me with a cold stare. "Emma, maybe you should wait at the bar. We need to focus on your father, and," she paused, gesturing at my outfit, "you don't exactly fit in." I felt the floor drop out from under me. In front of dozens of guests, my family was trying to kick me out of my own dad's birthday party, all because they thought I wasn't successful enough. The pain hit like a tidal wave, drowning me. But in that moment, something else sparked, a fire inside me. I wasn't the failure they thought I was. And what happened next would change everything. Before I tell you what went down, drop a comment below. Have you ever been looked down on just because someone didn't know the truth about you? Share your story. I read every one, and I know we can connect through moments like this. If you're dying to see how my family faced the truth, keep watching, because the drama at the Pinnacle is about to explode. In that moment, as my sister, Lauren, blocked me at the entrance to the private dining room at the Pinnacle, I felt like the world was crumbling around me. Her icy glare, her manicured nails digging into my arm, and her venomous voice rang out, "Emma, you don't belong here. This is a party for successful people, not bookstore clerks like you." My brother, Michael, stood nearby, smirking, piling on, "For real, Emma. One plate here costs more than your monthly paycheck. Want me to call you an Uber?" My mom, Margaret, stood a few steps away, silent, but her cold stare hurt more than any words. She gestured at my navy sweater and jeans, as if my presence was a stain on the Carter family's perfect picture. I stood there, in the grand lobby of the Pinnacle, Seattle's most luxurious restaurant, with glass walls reflecting chandelier light and gleaming marble floors, feeling like I was dissolving. My heart pounded, my face burned, and for a second, I thought I might break down. Not because of their words, I was used to their disdain, but because of how public it was. Dozens of guests, from my dad's powerful friends to prominent businesspeople, were watching us. Some whispered, others looked away, but I felt their eyes, like needles piercing my self-worth. My dad, James, stood not far off, chatting with a group of businessmen, seemingly oblivious, or unwilling to notice, the drama unfolding with his youngest daughter. Lauren didn't let up. She stepped closer, her voice syrupy but vicious, like she was doing me a favor. "Emma, we're just looking out for you. This is Dad's party, and there are very important people here. You don't fit in. Maybe the bar would be more comfortable for you." Michael nodded, clapping my shoulder with a fake smile. "Yeah, sis. I'll spring for a cocktail, if you can afford the bus fare home." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, and I saw Mom turn away, pretending to chat with an acquaintance, as if she didn't want to be tied to this embarrassment. That was the final straw. I opened my mouth, ready to say something, anything, to defend myself. But then, another voice cut through the chaos. "Is there a problem here?" the security guard asked, his tone professional but firm. Lauren flashed her perfect smile, the one she used to smooth over any situation. "No problem at all," she said, waving a hand like she was dismissing a nuisance. "My sister just got the wrong place. She's leaving." She shot me a look, her eyes commanding, "Get out, Emma." A chill ran down my spine, my hand tightening around Dad's gift, the old leather journal I'd chosen with all my heart. I thought I'd have to turn and walk away, swallowing this humiliation like so many times before. But then, the guard looked at me more closely, and his face changed. From stern, he broke into a smile, giving a slight bow. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice warm with respect. "Your VIP table's always ready, as usual. Anything else you need, Madam CEO?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Lauren's mouth dropped open, her perfectly lipsticked lips trembling. Michael fumbled his wine glass, red liquid splashing across the marble floor like a bloodstain. My mom, Margaret, clutched her pearl necklace, her eyes wide like she'd seen a ghost. My dad, not far off, stopped mid-conversation and turned, his brows furrowed, as if he wasn't sure what he'd just heard. But that was only the beginning. Before anyone could react, Sophia, the restaurant manager, hurried over, her face a mix of worry and excitement. "Miss Carter," she exclaimed, then lowered her voice when I signaled her. "We didn't know you were here with family tonight. The main banquet room set up per your specs from last week's charity gala. Should I double-check anything?" I tried to keep my voice steady, though inside, my heart was singing. "Thank you, Sophia," I said, offering a small smile. Everything's fine, I'm just here to celebrate my dad's birthday. But the drama wasn't over. Antoine, the head chef, emerged from the kitchen, his crisp white uniform gleaming, a wide grin on his face. "Miss Carter," he called, weaving through the crowd to shake my hand. "I've prepared that cod with passion fruit sauce you loved from last week's gala. Can't wait to serve you and your family tonight." Lauren looked like she might faint. Michael took a step back, his eyes wild, like he was trying to piece together a puzzle with no answers. And then, as if fate wanted to crank things up to 11, Daniel, the owner of the Pinnacle, strode in. He was an older man, commanding, who rarely appeared except for special occasions. "Emma," he boomed, his voice carrying across the lobby. "If I'd known you were coming, I'd have reserved the private balcony for you and your family. After your gala raised $3 million for underprivileged kids, it's the least we could do." He turned to my still stunned family and added, "You must be so proud. Not just because Emma's the CEO of EdTech Solutions, but because she owns this entire Pinnacle Tower, one of Seattle's most valuable properties." The lobby fell silent, save for the soft jazz drifting from the corner band. Lauren let go of my arm, stepping back, her eyes flickering between shock and panic. Michael stared at the floor, like he wanted to sink into it. My mom, for the first time in her life, was speechless, her pearl necklace trembling in her hands. My dad stepped closer, his eyes a mix of confusion, shame, and maybe a hint of pride. I stood there, at the center of everyone's attention, feeling like a curtain had been pulled back to reveal the real me. But my emotions weren't just triumph. There was a deep sadness woven in. I'd hoped my family would love me for who I am, not for money or status. But now, with the truth out in the open, would their looks change because of me, or just because of what I owned? Before I tell you what happened next, when I faced my family head-on, drop a comment below. Have you ever had a moment where the truth changed how people saw you? Share your story, because I know we all have secrets that flipped the script. If you're itching to see how my family reacted, keep watching, because the story at the Pinnacle is just heating up. When Daniel, the owner of the Pinnacle, finished his bombshell, that I wasn't just the CEO of EdTech Solutions but also owned the entire tower, the room fell into an eerie hush. My sister, Lauren, stood frozen, her mouth still agape, her perfectly lipsticked lips trembling like she'd just lost the script to her life. My brother, Michael, stared at the marble floor, the shattered wine glass at his feet a symbol of his crumbling arrogance. My mom, Margaret, clutched her pearl necklace, her eyes darting between shock and panic, as if scrambling for an explanation to salvage her image. My dad, James, stood a few steps away, looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years, not disappointment, not indifference, but curiosity mixed with a trace of shame. But I didn't feel victorious. Deep in my heart, a profound sadness welled up. I'd hidden the truth to test if my family could love the real me, and now, with the truth laid bare, their looks shifted. But was it for me, or just the money and status they worshipped? I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Thank you, everyone," I said to Daniel and the staff, offering a small smile. "I just want to celebrate my dad's birthday. Shall we head to the dining room?" Daniel nodded, leading our group, my family and the guests, to the private banquet room, where glass walls framed a stunning view of Seattle at night. But as we entered, the air felt heavy, like a storm was brewing. My family, usually loud with boasts and stories, was unnervingly quiet. Lauren sat down, avoiding my gaze. Michael fiddled with his phone, but I saw his hands shake. Mom forced a strained smile, whispering to a guest, as if trying to regain control. Only Dad kept looking at me, his eyes full of questions. I took a seat next to Dad, a spot I'd normally be pushed to the end of the table for. This time, no one dared say a word. I felt every eye in the room, not just my family's, but the business tycoons Dad called friends, waiting for me to speak. And I knew it was time to tell the truth, not to brag, but to confront what had torn us apart for years. I cleared my throat, my voice ringing out, clear and firm. I know you're all shocked, I began, locking eyes with Lauren, then Michael, then Mom. I don't work at a bookstore. I'm the CEO of EdTech Solutions, an EdTech company helping thousands of kids worldwide learn. I own this tower, and I've donated millions to build schools in underserved communities. But that's not what matters. What matters is why I hid it all. I turned to Lauren, who tried to kick me out of the party minutes ago. Lauren, you called me an embarrassment, said I didn't belong here. But did you ever ask what I was doing? Did you ever care if I was happy? Lauren bowed her head, her lips pressed tight, but I saw her eyes redden. I faced Michael. Michael, you thought I was a failure because I don't drive a fancy car or wear designer clothes. But did it ever occur to you that success isn't for showing off, it's for making a difference? Michael looked out the window, avoiding my gaze, but I saw his shoulders tremble. Then I looked at Mom. Mom, you always wanted me to be like Lauren, to live for your pride in front of your friends. But did you know that every time you criticized me, I felt like I wasn't your daughter? Finally, I turned to Dad, the man who'd once been my whole world. Dad, you taught me that character matters more than money. But as your company grew, you started measuring me by what I didn't have, a prestigious job, a glamorous life. Do you remember when I won that statewide writing contest? I waited for you at the ceremony, but you were at a client dinner. I cried all night, but no one noticed. Dad bowed his head, his hand gripping his glass, and I saw his eyes glisten, maybe the first time I'd ever seen him close to tears. I paused, taking a breath to steady myself. I hid the truth because I wanted to know if you could love me, respect me, for who I really am. Not because I'm rich, not because I own this tower, but because I'm Emma, the girl who loves books, who wants to do what's right. But tonight, you gave me your answer. When you thought I was a failure, you were ready to kick me out of my own dad's birthday party. That's not family love. That's judgment based on money and status, the things you've always put above everything else. The banquet room was silent. Lauren wiped a tear, trying to hide it. Michael let out a heavy sigh, his fake smile gone for once. Mom opened her mouth but found no words. Dad looked at me, and I saw a spark in his eyes, not pride for my CEO title, but realization that he'd been wrong. An older guest, a businessman, broke the silence with a soft clap. "Young lady, you're remarkable," he said, and a few others nodded. But I didn't need their approval. I needed my family to understand. Dad stood up, his voice hoarse. "Emma, can we talk on the balcony for a minute?" I nodded, my heart racing. As we stepped outside, Seattle's cool night air wrapped around me like a gentle hug. The balcony overlooked the city, with the Space Needle glowing and Puget Sound shimmering under the moonlight. Dad stood by the railing, gazing at the skyline, looking older, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen. "I had a speech prepared for tonight," he said, his voice low. "About my journey from poverty to success, about my legacy. But now, it sounds so hollow. I waited, letting him go on. He turned to me, his eyes red. Emma, I was wrong. I let money and status blind me to the love I have for you. When you were little, I told you character matters more than money, but then I forgot that. I measured you by what I thought success was, and I didn't see you, my daughter, who's smart, brave, and kind. His words cut like a knife, both painful and healing. Tears welled up, but I didn't wipe them away. Dad, I don't want an apology, I said, my voice trembling. I just want us to find each other again. I hid the truth because I was scared that if I told you and you still didn't love me, I'd lose you forever. He took my hand, his own shaking. You won't lose me, Emma, he said. I want to know you, the real you, not the CEO, but my daughter. I've missed too much, but if you'll give me a chance, I'll try. Before I tell you what happened when we returned to the dinner table, drop a comment below. Have you ever had to confront your family to tell the truth about yourself? Share your story. I read every one, and I know moments like these can change everything. If you're dying to see how my family changed after that night, keep watching, because the story at the pinnacle still has some big surprises. As I stepped off the pinnacle's balcony that night, holding my dad James's hand, I had no idea that moment would spark a profound shift in the Carter family. That night, when the truth about me, CEO of EdTech Solutions, owner of the Pinnacle Tower, and a philanthropist who donated millions to education, exploded in front of my family, I thought it might be the end. I thought the public humiliation from my mom, Margaret, my sister Lauren, and my brother Michael would leave scars too deep to heal. But sometimes, the most painful moments open the door to something better. Over the next 6 months, my family began to change, not perfectly, not overnight, but enough to make me believe that real love can be rebuilt, if we're brave enough to face ourselves. Let's start with my dad, James. The man who once measured success by money and status did something I never expected. A few weeks after the party, he called me one early morning, his voice buzzing with excitement over the phone. Emma, I want to do something meaningful, like you're doing, he said. He'd founded the Carter Future Scholarship, aimed at low-income Seattle kids, children who grew up like he did, in cramped apartments with freezing winters. He spent hours each week meeting students, sharing his journey from truck driver to logistics mogul, and urging them to dream big. I'll never forget visiting one of his fun's events, seeing Dad surrounded by kids, grinning like he'd rediscovered himself. You inspired me, Emma, he said over a quiet father-daughter lunch afterward. Watching you with EdTech Solutions, I realized a legacy isn't about money, it's about what you leave in people's hearts. My mom, Margaret, took a slower path. She'd lived to impress, always fretting about the family's image among her high society friends. After that night at the Pinnacle, I could tell she struggled to process the truth about me. But one day, she showed up at EdTech Solutions' office, looking out of place in her pricey silk dress among engineers and teachers. Emma, I want to help, she said, her voice hesitant. I invited her to volunteer at our programs in Tacoma's rough neighborhoods, where we provide educational software. At first, she did it out of guilt, but slowly, I saw her change. She started talking about the kids with genuine warmth, like when she shared how a boy gave her a drawing to say thanks. I never thought I could make a difference like this, she admitted at a family dinner. It wasn't a miracle, but it was a start, a sign she was learning to see beyond the glossy facade she'd clung to. My sister, Lauren, was always the toughest to budge. A high-flying lawyer, she thrived in a world of big deals and glitzy parties. But that night at the Pinnacle shook her. A month later, she called me, her voice tight. "Emma, I've been thinking about what you said," she confessed. "I was jealous of you, not for the money, but because you're free, happy with what you do." Lauren made a move that stunned us all. She left her law firm. She started a nonprofit focused on ensuring educational access for kids from marginalized communities. I attended one of her events, watching her speak to a crowd, not bragging about handbags or VIP clients, but about the kids she'd helped. "I'm still learning to live authentically, Emma," she said afterward, her smile more genuine than ever. "But for the first time, I feel like I'm doing something right." My brother, Michael, was perhaps the most surprising. A real estate investor, he'd lived to flaunt his yacht and cars. But after that night, I noticed him grow quieter. One day, he showed up at my office, no smug grin in sight. "Emma, I was wrong about you," he said. "I was wrong about a lot." Michael sold his yacht and started investing in affordable housing projects in Seattle, helping working families find decent homes. I visited one of his developments, seeing him chat with residents, his eyes lit with real pride. "I used to think success was about having more," he told me later. "Now I get it, it's about giving back." But this story isn't just about my family. It's about me, facing my deepest fear. When I hid the truth about EdTech solutions, about owning the Pinnacle Tower, I always said it was to test my family's love. I wanted to know if they could care about the real me, not money or status. But if I'm honest with you, and myself, that wasn't the whole truth. Part of me hid because I was scared. Scared that if I revealed everything and they still rejected me, still saw me as a failure, I'd shatter. I used my secret as a shield, protecting myself from the pain of rejection. But that night at the Pinnacle taught me something: living authentically, though terrifying, is the only way to find real connection. I remember a night, weeks after the party, sitting in my small apartment, journaling. I wrote about my fears, of not being enough, of losing my family, of my success meaning nothing if I had to hide it. But then I realized I didn't need their validation to feel whole. I built EdTech solutions not to prove anything, but because I believe in bringing education to every kid. I'd lived by my values, and that mattered most. But I also learned that living authentically doesn't mean giving up on family. It means giving them a chance to see me, really see me, and letting them change. Looking back on this journey, I see that we all have fears, secrets, and moments where we must face ourselves. My family isn't perfect, and our journey continues, with good days and tough ones. But we're learning to love each other, not for what we have, but for who we are. And that's what I want you to take from this story. Don't let fear stop you from living your truth. Be brave enough to show who you are, even if it means standing alone for a while. Before I share the final chapter of this story, the biggest lesson and how you can apply it to your life, drop a comment below. What did you learn from my journey? Was there a moment you chose to live authentically? Share your story. I read every one, and I know those stories can inspire us all. If you're eager to see how my family kept evolving and the lesson that changed my life, keep watching, because this story still has one inspiring chapter left. When I look back on that fateful night at the Pinnacle, the night my family, who once saw me as a failure, stood stunned to learn I was the CEO of EdTech Solutions and owner of that dazzling skyscraper, I realized that moment wasn't just a shock. It was a turning point, a chance for us to face painful truths and rebuild what had been shattered. In the 6 months since that night, the Carter family has changed, not perfectly, not without tension, but enough to make me believe that real love, love rooted in authenticity, can heal even the deepest wounds. But more than that, this journey has taught me, and I hope it teaches you about our true worth and how to live a life unbound by others' expectations. Let me recap this journey, because it's not just my story, it's one we can all see ourselves in. I'm Emma Carter, raised in a family obsessed with status and outward success. My dad, James, was once a simple man who taught me character matters more than money, but he got swept up in fame. My mom, Margaret, lived to impress, always wanting me to be a perfect clone of my sister, Lauren. Lauren, a high-powered lawyer, and my brother, Michael, a real estate investor, measured worth by designer bags and luxury cars. Me, the book-loving dreamer who wanted to make a difference, always felt out of place. I hid that I'd built EdTech Solutions, a $100 million EdTech company, because I wanted to know if my family could love the real me, not what I owned. That night at the Pinnacle, when Lauren and Michael tried to kick me out of Dad's birthday party for being unworthy, was the most painful moment of my life. But when the truth erupted, when the restaurant staff called me Madam CEO, and revealed I owned the tower, everything shifted. I confronted my family, spilling years of pent-up hurt, and my dad, once distant, held my hand on the balcony, promising to rediscover his true self. In the 6 months that followed, Dad started a scholarship fund, Mom volunteered at schools, Lauren launched a nonprofit, and Michael invested in affordable housing. But I also faced myself, admitting I hid the truth not just to test my family, but to shield myself from the fear of rejection. So, what's the biggest lesson I've taken from this journey? It's that your worth doesn't lie in what you own, what you flaunt, or what others think of you. Your worth is in how you live true to your heart, in the impact you make, and in the courage to be authentic, even if it means standing alone. I learned that family, though flawed, can change if you give them a chance, but you don't need their validation to feel whole. I built EdTech Solutions not to prove anything to anyone, but because I believe every kid deserves to learn, no matter where they're born. That's real success, not money, not status, but living a life that matters. But I don't want this story to be something you hear and forget. I want it to inspire you to act, to live your truth. So here's the takeaway I want you to carry forward. This week, do one brave thing. Tell a loved one the truth, maybe about a dream you're hiding, a feeling of being judged, or what you really want from life. Ask them what matters to them, and listen, really listen. You might be surprised by the real connections that come from honesty. And if it feels scary, remember I was scared too, scared enough to hide a $100 million company. But the truth brought me closer to my family and, more importantly, to myself. This story at the Pinnacle isn't a perfect ending. My family still has tense days, moments when we slip back into old habits. But we're learning to love each other for who we are, not what we show off. And I, Emma Carter, am learning to live without a shield, without secrets, with an open heart. I hope this story has touched you, reminded you that you're worthy of love and respect for being you, not for what you achieve or hide. Before I wrap up, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What lesson from my story hit home for you? What's one thing you'll do this week to live your truth? I read every comment, and I can't wait to hear your stories. If this journey inspired you, hit that like button. It really helps me keep sharing stories like this. And if you haven't subscribed, smash that red button and ring the bell, because I've got more stories coming about courage, truth, and life-changing moments. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this journey. Remember, you don't need to own a skyscraper or $1 million company to shine. Your light is in the real you, and that's the most beautiful thing you can share with the world. I'm Emma Carter, and I'll see you in the next video.